Nick Champion, welcome to ABC News 24.
Good morning, Latika.
You've written today that Labor's standing in the opinion polls terrifies you. Former Labor Premier Steve Bracks sees Labor losing power federally and in the remaining states. Is it a Queensland-style decimation you both fear?
Well, I think what I fear most of all is if the Liberals get a clean sweep of the states and obviously a big win federally and get control of the Senate, then it leaves the way open for them to embark on radical industrial relations reform and, as Joe Hockey has recently been talking about, applying the GST to food and extending the rate of the GST. So it's not just my own electoral prospects or the party's electoral prospects I fear for. I fear for the types of policies that the Liberal Party will embrace and pursue in government and the effect that that will have on Labor supporters and the country.
So what's the antidote?
Well, look, I think obviously we have to develop new policies, and I think part of that is about, if you like, returning to the issue which Labor is best known for and best connected to the Australian political psyche with, and that's the issue of work. We've been quietly working away, developing a policy agenda around skills and training, around a whole range of issues related to work, superannuation being the most notable, but we haven't spent a lot of time talking about it. And what I want to see is a renewed focus on those issues, and in particular a better relationship and a more formal relationship with the trade union movement while Labor is in government.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned the trade union movement because they're in the headlines right now. Tony Sheldon, the head of the Transport Workers Union, is threatening the Labor caucus, saying his union will withhold a $200,000 donation from the Labor Party if you try and reinstate Kevin Rudd as the Prime Minister. Is that a threat you're going to heed?
Well, look, that's a matter for the TWU, and I respect their right to be part of the political process. But I just point out that we're better off having the unions in the tent talking about important policies that affect their members, things like enterprise migration, things like the retraining of redundant workers, things like the skills gap. That's what we want to hear from unions on. I don't think it's in anybody's interest to have the unions constantly commentating on political tactics or, campaign issues or on issues that are best left to the Labor caucus. I think we want the unions to embrace, the public policy debate in a constructive fashion and not sort of be commenting on the day-to-day, if you like, manoeuvring of politics.
Nick Champion, is it appropriate and is it very common for the union bosses to be telling the caucus what they should do in regards to the Labor leadership?
Well, they're free to offer advice. I don't think that caucus should be taking advice from anybody outside of its ranks. I don't think it's, very good
Nick
when
Champion,
union leaders or lobbyists...
If the advice, Nick Champion, comes with a threat of withholding a $200,000 donation, it's more than just advice, isn't it?
Well, it doesn't really matter who's giving us their pearls of wisdom, whether it's a union leader or a lobbyist or, one of the many commentators who make their make their bones in politics doing this sort of stuff. It's really, these matters for the Labor caucus, and, we guard our privileges pretty jealously. I think that if union leaders want to participate in those discussions, they should get pre-selection and run for public office and join us in Canberra.
Now, in your article today that you've written for the ABC Online, you say that the Labor Party should heed the messages or the warnings that opinion polls contain for them. Now, for some time, the opinion polls have been saying that the public would prefer to see Kevin Rudd as Prime Minister. Why is the caucus refusing to hear that message?
Well, look, I think we do have to obviously take heed of public opinion. I don't think that my article was really referring to the leadership as such. What I was referring to is the policy agenda that we have to embrace to win back public support. And I think what the Australian community want and Australian workers want is for the political and industrial wings of the Labor Party to be in lockstep on a policy agenda that's about their daily lives, and in my opinion that can best be achieved by having a formal accord with the union movement and by dealing with those difficult policy issues which face the nations, things like migration and the skill shortage. We need to deal with those in a constructive fashion and not, over the nation's airwaves.
And Nick Champion, Tony Sheldon also laughed off the small number of MPs favouring a Rudd return and said that you're the Labor Party equivalent of the Malcolm Turnbull fan club in the Liberals. Now, at the last leadership ballot, you were very clear in supporting Kevin Rudd. Do you still feel that way, or has Tony Sheldon been persuasive enough to make you change your mind?
Well, look, we had these issues out in February, and I made my views clear at the time. I accept the judgment of the caucus, and there is no vacancy and no challenger, so it's a redundant question.
So, is the leadership being talked about within the party, or is everybody jumping at shadows?
Well, look, if people are talking, they're not talking to me. Like I said, I made my views pretty clear at the time. I accept the result. I'm more interested in the policy agenda that we have to embrace, I think, to win back public support, and that is a return to the issues that favour the Labor Party. Things like training, things like skills, things like a proper, decent social wage for working class people, and I think that's really where the Labor Party draws its strength from. If the political debate turns to those questions, then we'll inevitably gain in the polls. So my article, if you like, was not about the passing sort of leadership question that goes on in the media. It was really about the substantive policy debate that we need to have in the party, the policy agenda that we need to pursue to win the next election.
How much coverage could your accord have, though, given that unions now represent less of the workforce than ever before and wage setting is decentralised?
Well, unions are still the biggest organised group in the community. There are 2 million unionised workers out there, and they represent every walk of life. They represent cleaners and trolley collectors and shop assistants and factory workers and truck drivers, nurses, all those people, valued professions that keep the country going and really do earn most of the nation's wealth. I think those people, through their representatives, should have a say in public policy. It shouldn't just be left to big business and lobbyists in Canberra. The ordinary people of this country the working people of this country deserve a say in public policy and the issues that affect them. So I think there is an appropriate place for organised labour in the public policy debate, and it should be a constructive voice. As to these people who question the legitimacy of unions, I'm not one of them. I think unions play a very important role in civil society.